Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space.
Through this show, we hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so.
On Outer Spaces, we are passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow.
And I'm Dwayne Drawn.
Through our 40 years of combined dirt under the nails experience, we look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast.
Without further ado, let's get on with the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast brought to you by Yes Express. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and today we have a special guest back on returning, and we have a very important subject to talk about today, something that's going to impact every one of your businesses out there coming up here in the very near future. And what that is the economy and the changing economy, the talk of recession in the future coming up quicker than we probably want to think about, the constant pressure from inflation and everything that's going on out there and interest rates and all that good stuff. So I want to have Greg Crabtree back on here from Simple Numbers. As you know from before, he's a speaker, an entrepreneur, and a financial expert. He coaches me a lot in this stuff, and so does his group. So I really wanted to bring him back on and get his insight on what he's seeing in the market now. Now, just as a background, he sees data sets from hundreds of companies around the country, and not just in contracting, but in general. So I'm curious to see what kind of trends he's seeing right now, and to also just talk about what the current economy and the future expected economy, what that looks like for contractors. So, Greg, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's certainly been a hot topic of late. So
Yes,
and I think it's going to continue to be. So it'll be interesting to kind of go through kind of what your audience needs to be prepared for if they want to be the ones that come out on top. So
yep. And I know Tony Robbins talks about this, that businesses they don't go through, but they're part of this whole economic season. Right, the seasonality of the economy, where you have your spring where things are starting to grow and it's interesting. Then you have summer, so you're working hard and making some money. Then fall, you can reap all this reward. But then inevitably there's winter. And winter is what takes businesses out. And I believe that we're seeing some glimpses, some cold mornings, if you will, some frost on the horizon here. And what I want to make sure is all of our listeners are getting prepared for what that could be. And if we're totally wrong, Greg, completely out of our minds wrong, we can only be more prepared, right? We just don't want it to blindside us, especially with so many new people that are listening that just started businesses in the last 3-4 years that have never been through. They've only ever seen up. They've never seen correction. I want to make sure that our listeners are preparing themselves. So, Greg, how do you see the current economic conditions in through your different data sets, especially as it pertains to the contracting world?
one thing I'll say about winter is you never want it to be always winter and never Christmas.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the worst part of it.
Yeah.
So let's step back and kind of look at, the thing I want everybody to understand is every economist is missing the most critical data point that's been right in front of our eyes. And it's now starting to come out in a few of the things that I've seen just in the last few weeks that people may be starting to get their head wrapped around it. But we saw it, and it's part of our core philosophy. The number one thing that it takes to make money in business is the leveraging of labor. And the people who deploy labor effectively and get margin off of it and can continuously acquire labor, deploy labor, make profit off of labor, those are the companies that win in terms of profitability. And what our data set shows to us is that we ran out of labor in the U.S. economy in the fourth quarter of 2019. Now, the problem is it takes a month or two for labor statistics to pop out. And if you remember, kind of February of 2020, we kind of got distracted with this thing called COVID. And then all of a sudden, everybody froze. Some people went home. We totally disrupted the workplace in hybrid work schedules, remote work schedules, and all of those things. But the core reality is this: The Economist, and there's actually a chart that was in the Wall Street Journal couple of days ago that talked about the labor force, and it shows this ever increasing line, and it shows this forecast that just continues to keep going, and it shows it hitting, the COVID point, and it crashes, and then it comes back, and it's only come back to the same number that we were at that growth point. And what they're failing to understand is there is no more humans coming to solve this. I mean, we're below replacement birth rate and dropping worse. I mean, we were at 2.4 replacement birth rate in 2001. We're at 1.8 in early 21. We're probably closer to 1.7 now. And so what we've never faced before in an economy is a stagnant to declining population. And especially, even though total population might not appear to be, it's about the workers. And when you look at workforce participation, we're headed towards 1960s level workforce participation because, old people like me, my peers have all retired. Now, I like what I do, so I'm not retiring, but my peers, I mean, I just got a text before I came on the podcast, and these guys are playing golf, and it's like, dang it, I got to work today. And it's like, but they're all consumers. Mm-hmm. And so you have this, and it's an extraordinarily large amount of consumers that are sitting there buying services, buying product, and there's not enough workers to deliver it. We always thought that when the baby boomers went into retirement, it would be Social Security that would collapse. Well, we kind of figured out that as long as we have a printing press, Alan Greenspan famously said, we're never going to run out of money as long as we have a printing press. Well, I mean, the government's kind of, dealt with that, to some degree. But the bigger issue is not so much the inequity of Social Security funding. It is the fact that you have way too many buyers with way too few producers. Mm-hmm. And tell me where that's going to change. I mean, okay, we can fix that with immigration, right? We can't even get each party within their own party to agree on immigration reform, much less get the two parties to agree. Yeah. And so it ain't coming there. Birth rate's below replacement birth rate. And so to a certain degree, I mean, across the board, all of our clients that can access international labor. I mean, I've never seen as big a push than ever for accessing international labor where it can be used. In the contractor services world, you can't access somebody remotely to swing a hammer. Yep. Or to use a shovel or to put up a structure. So those have to be physical workers. And that is a challenge. And so we're in this weird time of where even though we might go into a recession, it will be for a different reason. It will be because we can't get it done, less than the fact that there's not demand. And so I'll point everybody to Wall Street Journal a couple of months ago. Just do a search on Latvia. And there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal that was an expose on Latvia as a picture of a country that's dying, not from political turmoil or anything like that, from population turmoil. They are declining. The kids, and even though they're below replacement birth rate, even of the kids that they have, they're not staying there. They're leaving. And you've got all of these seniors and retirees that cannot buy things they need. There's shortages of product. There's shortages of services. And it's a microcosm of where we are headed. And I don't know that the leaders understand all of these dynamics because they're using old school thinking of adjusting interest rates and all those things. And yesterday, great article yesterday in the Wall Street Journal talking about the Fed's ability to combat inflation. They're over. I mean, if you go back to every time we've had inflation and you look at the result of the Fed's actions, they pushed us into a recession. Mm. I mean, they are as clueless as they come in terms of understanding. And the reality is the best answer is just don't worry with it. It will fix itself by supply and demand. And, everybody what you worry about with inflation that we've had in the past is everything didn't inflate. Well, this is a different inflation. This inflation that we're facing today is different than we've ever faced before because it's driven by one thing and one thing only: lack of labor. Tell me who is not having the potential of significant increases in pay across all of the landscape of every industry, every occupation.
Yeah,
Everybody.
everybody.
Now there's some people that are sticking their head in the sand and sticking with a low-paying job, that they're just too clueless or too lazy to actually go look for another one. But I mean, all across the board, people are getting significant increases in pay. And you can, depends on which group you look at studying. Purchasing power, is it staying ahead, staying behind? I mean, it's the old adage, there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. And, and I think for the most part, I mean, most everybody's putting out, a lot of this information is, let's face it, it's, going to be politically motivated depending on whichever side puts it out. And I'm a data realist. I just look at the data and I will tell you across my client base, I think, even though I believe inflation is close to about 15% in real terms, most everybody's wages are going at exactly the same number of the people who are working for those clients. Now, there's winners and losers throughout everybody else, but I think everybody is kind of moving along and staying in concert with each other for the most part. And this is kind of the thing as you look across the broad economy. In the past, when we had runaway inflation in the 70s and 80s that I lived through, it was because we had stupid tax policies with tax shelters, and we were doing real estate arbitrage where you would create lost properties to deduct losses at 50%, sell the property at a gain, which now what sense does that make, and pay tax at a 20%. And so there was a 30% tax rate arbitrage in that's just bad policy and that stupid stuff. Well, that went away with 1986 Reform Act, and we've pretty much been a fairly straight approach to things, and the tweaks that have kind of come. I mean, really, I think, right now we kind of have the most neutral tax policy across all entities, corporate, personal, that we've had in quite some time. And pretty much everything's kind of adjusting. And it's like everybody's freaking out. And it's like, if you want to learn about inflation, just go live in Argentina. I mean, they have 20% inflation a month and have had it for years.
Crazy.
And, and we don't want to be there, but this inflation that we have because of labor is the main issue, is a situation that the tools that they're using to fight against it probably only do more harm than good. And it's kind of there. And the only thing that's going to change it, I mean, we ought to be sending, massive recruiting people to bring the best and the brightest immigrants into the country to meet the workforce. Because name me one sector where there's excess labor in anything.
Except for unemployment. I don't know.
Zero. Yeah. You can, for anybody who makes a statement that, we're taking jobs away from people. No, we're not. We don't, there's two to three open job postings, and a lot of people actually could hire even more. They just given up thinking of actually growing their business because there's just not an available person to go do it. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, you're seeing everybody who can access international labor, is doing it. Now that's going to, you'll see some shifts of some people, get freed up because positions were taken up, by international people, but in shift in that. But at the end of the day, I mean, it is a labor issue that's causing this, and no interest rate policies. I mean, all they're going to do is, kind of wreck demand for, either new home buying, which in the hot states, that it's not even going to stop that. I mean, we're so behind in inventory of new homes in the southern states where everybody's migrating to, that they're not catching up. It could hurt the landscape industry and some of the contractor trades, where people are doing renovations that typically they're going to borrow on a HELOC against their house, and if those rates are a little bit higher. But as long as rates stay 4% or lower, nothing, everything's going to be full steam ahead. As you get to 5, there's a few people that will drop out. If interest rates get above 5, that's where you're going to see people will pause, and kick the can down the road, and you might see some relief. But right now, I mean, all the contractors I talk to, I mean, I talked to a group of renovation companies. It's a mastermind group, last month. and we were going through all their data and talking to them. And I mean, every one of them has record backlogs of work. I mean, sales is not a problem for them.
Yep.
It's getting things done.
Yep.
And, and that's the part that, that kind of goes to your audience. What they have to be prepared for is, okay, I don't think you have to worry too much about demand. What our message to your community is, how do you prepare for a very disruptive execution environment, for the work that you're trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we're seeing as well. And, we've never seen such backlogs. I've been doing this 25 years. I've never seen backlogs like this where we're looking at a year and trying to price in a market where you can't lock a number in. It's just things are changing too fast.
That's right.
And trying to have clients that have never dealt with an environment like this, where they're always used to a fixed price model and they don't have to worry about any kind of flexibility in there, where we can't, in good ethics, do it that way, because either we're going to get screwed or they're going to get screwed. And I don't like it that way. So, if they're not willing to do that, we got to let them go. And we've done that already, which sucks. But, in that case, what happens is when you have such a backlog is you have to manage your money a lot better, right? You can't just, if you have all this money sitting in the account, it's like, look at this, we got this windfall. And then a year from now, when you go to pay payroll or go to pay bills, you don't have any money left because you spent it the year before when you acquired it. So obviously taking the terms of your payment systems and all of that makes a lot more sense. It's a different world we live in now. But what I want to make sure that, the listeners are getting is that, in the contracting world, from what it sounds like, demand isn't going to be the problem. People are going to want what you have. It's a matter of how do you execute and bring it to dollars, right? Bring it to revenue, as opposed to it just being these wonderful sales that you have. And then all of a sudden you can't find employees, or you're paying them more in 3 months, 6 months, or a year because everyone else is offering them more. And pretty soon the margins you were going to make on that project are gone. They evaporated. Is that what you're seeing?
Yep, it is. Absolutely. And our trends show us that we've already seen a point or two decline in our rolling 12 model for all businesses. But the rolling 3, we're seeing a 3 or 4% decline in gross margin. And so gross margin is revenue minus COGS. So it doesn't have any labor in it, just the businesses that require stuff, materials or subcontractors to do what they do. We're seeing about a 3% profit leak from, you name it. I quoted it, the price changed, and either I didn't have the backbone to go to the customer and get that cost change, and really the other thing you got to understand the way the math works. Well, a lot of people are gravitating to, I'll just pass through what my cost change was. No, you have to pass through the cost change at your normal margin.
Yes.
Or else you will, by mathematical terms, it's mathematical physics, you will lower your gross margin. And as you lower your gross margin, you're putting more pressure on every operating cost to perform at a higher rate than it can. And you have to pass through things at margin, not at its raw cost. And that's what we're seeing is there's a full of the marketplace of people are just psychologically weak to defend the environment that we're in. I mean, I am amazed at how many people are reluctant to send through price changes. And it's like, and it's not for egalitarian reasons. Oh, I'm helping my fellow consumer by eating that. All you're doing is putting your business at risk to not be in business. I mean, we've got clients that resisted price changes when they were told to make price changes. Now they went from making money to losing money. Now, when you go past that cliff and you're now underwater trying to climb your way out, you are at the potential of not succeeding as a business. That's actually where you're at risk of failure. And I got news for you. This is where the thing that I'm trying to get everybody to understand, this is not transitory inflation. This is going to be with us. And until you see a cavalry of people coming to work in all trades and everything in the economy, we are going to have inflation. And there's no product that you have, there's no service that you deliver that doesn't require labor to do it that is not being affected by inflation. And some are going to be affected more than others, because here's the other side of it. Sad to say, but the current workforce is soft.
For sure.
I mean, they are soft. And I just was talking to a group of managed service providers in the IT industry yesterday, and I made this statement, and they all nodded. And I said, I bet you every one of you are very cautious to come down on an underperforming employee to correct them just because you're afraid you're going to run them off and they'll go look for another job. Every one of them said, yep.
Wow.
They're allowing bad performance for fear of, well, I'd rather have a bad performer than a no performer.
Yeah.
No,
It's crazy.
I mean, I get it. And yeah, but that is where we're at. And then when one guy told a story, he said, a friend of his son got fired from his job, and got fired from his job and found another job on the way home.
Yep.
And at better pay.
Yeah. You see the signs everywhere. I mean, everybody is hiring, and they can't keep the people because they keep leveling up, which, hey, the opportunity is here to do that for sure. And now it's the employer's focus to be able to offer the best value to their people. So I actually don't mind this if people are right sizing their lives. But to your point earlier, and I want to just nail this because so many I've seen throughout this entire pandemic time and change of economy and all this stuff where prices, when inflation started to kick in, they were holding on their prices. Like, no, I'm afraid to go to my clients and say, I need an extra 5 or 10%. And I'm like, that comes directly out of profit. So if you were hopefully going to get a 5 or 10 or 15% margin, that erases that section, right? So you're like, okay, I'm doing it for nothing. For what? Because you don't have the spine to go out and tell a client the world is changing. My bids weren't, designed for this, to $5, $6, $7 gas, just to eat that stuff. Or the other strategy would be, okay, well, I'm not going to say anything about the clients I already have signed, but the new ones, I'm going to have them pay a ton more so I can pick up from my mistake before, which I know a lot of people are guilty of doing that. The problem is that it's not your new client's responsibility to pick up the fact that you didn't have the guts to go out and just be honest with people. They understand it. They understand it. And that's how you're going to run a business in this kind of crazy economy. It's not going to end. It's going to keep going like this.
Well, there's two leverage points that we need to get our head wrapped around that have changed, that are going to be here with us for a while. And number one is your employees now have leverage over you.
Yes.
We've a handful of very highly specialized, short of quantity positions that may have been the case. This is across the board. So get used to it. You're going to have to manage people and labor in a totally different way. Second thing is vendors of scarce, hard to deliver, lack of availability products or services now have leverage over their customers. Mm-hmm. And so we all come from this, the customer's king. In a scarce environment, no, the vendor is king. And it's like, I have what you need. Here's a slot on the schedule. Do you want it? Here's the price. No negotiation.
Yep.
You got 5 minutes to make this decision because I got somebody else right behind you that wants that slot. Do you want it? Yes or no? And, now, we're generally people that we're nice people. We've been taught to be customer friendly, and it's a change for us to think in that way. But like you said, most of the people who are listening to this podcast have a backlog of work and limited availability. And what you've got to understand is I'm not always going to have that leverage, but you're going to have it for a while. And I need to use it to say, here's the open slot to the highest valuable person. Your availability on your schedule is no different than that new house that just came on the market, lists for $500,000, and people are bidding $650,000. Why is your services any different than that when they're in scarce availability?
That's right.
And
it's a powerful statement. Yeah,
you've got to think differently in terms of if you're in that position. Now, if you're selling a commodity that nobody gives a rip about and there is availability, okay, you gotta be customer friendly. You gotta, and I can be customer friendly and still be adamant about here's my price and here's my availability. I can hold it for 5 more minutes, but I got somebody on the other line that wants this time slot. So
yeah, exactly.
Are we going to do business or not?
Do you see this, Greg, in your eyes? Do you see this lasting another? I know nobody knows for sure, but are you thinking like a year, 2 years, 3 years of this demand until things balance out? You think that the Fed's going to get crazy and raise those rates up past that, 5-6% range, which will then start stalling the market a bit? Like, what is your gut telling you? I know nobody knows, but what is your gut telling you?
Until we have excess labor, it's going to continue.
Got it.
So tell me when excess labor is going to exist.
Got it. Not anytime soon.
No. And so, so one of the nice things, I've got to present my material in 15 countries around the world. Mm-hmm. Some first world economies, presented in Australia, Canada, the U.S., in Europe. But I've also presented in third world economies. I've presented in Kenya and Tanzania, in those places. And what's interesting is, to me, there's only one difference between a first world economy and a third world economy, and that is the speed in which margin flows through from the beginning of the transaction to the end of the transaction. So when a transaction extends in length of time because of bottlenecks, delays, cash, it becomes more expensive, less efficient, and it becomes a higher capital requirement to run that business operation because of the inefficiency. What we enjoy in the U.S., Canada, Australia is really fast margin in most cases. Now, what we've seen in the contracting world is, I guarantee you, everybody's experiencing at least double timeframes from the start of a project to the end of a project, and sometimes even more. And with that comes inefficiency. And so now the thing is, if in those third world countries, there's not an excess supply of contractors, your delays are more related to the customer's whims and wishes rather than yours. In our case, it's the other way around. We can't get materials, we can't get contractors lined up and synced up and do those right things. And so therefore, we have the ability that even though those things are delayed, I can make sure that every time I'm incurring cost for the customer, they're giving me the cash for that cost. And so I stay cash neutral. And like I said, we have several groups that we work with in this arena, and like this group of renovation contractors I was talking to last month, is almost all of them are very good at what we call being trade capital neutral. So if you look at accounts receivable, work in progress, plus inventory, minus accounts payable and customer deposits, the net of those is I'm either holding my customers or my vendors' money, and I don't have any cash in a transaction. Mm-hmm. I just got to keep generating enough margin every month for the people that work for me to make sure I'm creating margin off of them so that I stay profitable. But I'm not having to finance projects. Mm-hmm. And what you're seeing is anybody who is not using the power of the marketplace, because there's still some people operating after the old thinking of, I'm going, I might take a little bit of a deposit, but, I'm still waiting for the half of my payment at the end of the project. And it's like, why would you ever do that? Yeah. I need to be paid, as I go and take draws. And if a customer is not willing to do that, that's the customer you say no to, mm-hmm. Because that's just an incredibly low return on investment, type situation. But if I can take my trade capital cash out of the equation, bill as I go, I can be much more margin efficient and still be nicely profitable. But I also don't get hurt if a project gets delayed. It's when projects get delayed and I'm holding the cash, that's when you get sunk. And if anybody's listening to this and you're not requiring payment as you go, or you pull off the job, you got to stop that. That's just, and you got the perfect leverage point to change the terms environment, yep, given the current economy.
So if I'm hearing you right, Greg, it's a matter of making sure if you have a $20,000 job and you get a deposit for that, we're not going to get into percentages yet, but you get a deposit for that, and you're then buying materials, because we have to buy them way ahead now, right, in order to get things done. So yep, say it starts in 2 months and you need at least 2 month window to get your pavers and all your material together, and you take that deposit and you're buying it, but you find that you don't have enough money to buy all the product that you need for that project, then you're taking it out of your pocket, out of your bank account, and buying that product so that you can hopefully get another payment when you start, Now you're taking your capital and you're putting it into the project. The bigger problem with what I'm hearing here is that if that project gets delayed for a month or two, then your money is still stuck in that project. And if something happens with that project, then it's your money that's at risk versus getting a bigger deposit up front, making sure your client's capital is the only money in the project so far. If something gets delayed, it's okay. And you're getting progress payments as you're starting, as you hit certain targets throughout the project and at the end. So you aren't waiting for this gigantic slug of cash at the end, and then they don't like something, or you're waiting 6 months for something, and then your money then gets bumped into the project because your contractors aren't going to wait, or your staff's not going to wait. Do I have the right mindset there?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, what customer is going to argue with, I need you to pay me at least everything that I'm having to spend money on your behalf on?
Yeah.
Why can't you pay me that now? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sit here and hold $100,000 of your money, and 3 months from now I'm going to spend that $100,000. Yeah. I don't need that. Yeah. And that's not. I mean, some people can get that, and there's charlatans out there that do that in the contracting world, and we all know it. But if you've got good reputation and you've got performance, reputation, in the industry, you can require that, and no good customer that you want to have, should say no to that. And if they do, go find you a different customer.
Yeah. 100%.
Because I guarantee you that, I mean, all the companies I work with, I mean, I'm telling you, there's only a handful. And the first thing we attack is that you're not getting the right terms. There's no reason to not get money as you incur costs in the current environment. And so as long as you're doing that, then it's just a matter of, can I get enough throughput? And here's the thing I always tell people, that the biggest thing that I see right now, we got companies that have $10 million of capacity and they're getting $8 million past the cash register. That's not good. That's called, I'm probably going to break even or make less money, because I got to get stuff past the cash register. And I was telling these guys yesterday that I was talking to, I said, how many of you, and this is a workforce psychology thing. What COVID taught us is it's okay to let stuff slide. That is the biggest downside that we learned in the last 2 years with COVID disruptions, is people said, we didn't go back to work for a week and the world didn't end. Well, it didn't end, but there was a lot of other mitigation of things, that had to happen. And the other thing that's really sucking up the labor capacity at the moment is, I think labor is working at least a 10 to 20% less productivity rate than what it was pre-COVID. And like I said, you push anybody to work hard, to be super productive, they're going, I'm out of here. I want to go someplace that'll let me lean on the shovel for a bit. Yeah. And I'm not going to have to work it as hard. And I'm going to go to a place that, isn't pushing to get projects out. And I always like to, when I talk to groups, I said, all right, here's the test. Let's think about the month of March. How many of you got everything done in the month of March that could have gotten done in March that was within your control? I'm taking stuff off the table that was out of your control. But did you get everything done that was within your control? And the universal answer is no. Mm-hmm. And well, what happens to those things that you could have gotten done that was within your control? Well, it slides to April. But now it's blocking April's productivity. Yeah. And it's going to happen again. Yep. And what we're seeing is every day it's, I just didn't get to that. Every week, I just didn't get to that. Every month, I just didn't get to that. And it's like, this is a productivity crisis, I think, that is a big hangover from COVID, and in every industry, right now. Wow. And granted, I mean, and so this is kind of that sliding thing that economists really struggle with, because I mean, productivity is hard to measure. I mean, fortunately, our labor efficiency ratio concepts really help us understand, because when I've got kind of a consistent head count and I'm seeing labor efficiency ratio go up or down, that really is a super good productivity measure. And I can tell you, for the most part, people, the only thing that's making labor productivity rates go up is raising prices. Mm-hmm. But people aren't getting more out. Nope. Yep. we almost, you could almost make an argument we might even be in a recession at the moment if you could actually measure, output. And, because, we weren't able to hire any more people. We're charging more for it. I mean, our 100 company model tells us that our 100 companies is about $1 billion of revenue. So it's a good data set. It was up 26% last year, year over year.
Wow.
26%. You know how much labor went up? 22%.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and so I'm telling you, I mean, at least 15% of that is inflation.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least.
So
it's not
just
doing more stuff.
Yeah. So Greg, as a contractor owning a contracting business out there, startup or been in it a long time, what should we be doing I know we've talked a lot about different things today, but what comes to mind is some other things we can do in order to prepare ourselves for the next, until this labor thing is figured out or the next big thing happens that we're not ready for. But like, how can we prepare our businesses to thrive in this crazy world of this winter coming? And like, how can we prepare our businesses now so we don't wish we did?
Well, and certainly the real estate related industries are more sensitive to interest rate changes, than any others, but here's the rules that got our clients through the '08 recession is that number one is this was really when we came out with our 2 months core capital target concept. So number one is don't be in debt in the business for line of credit, type debt. I mean, if you have a note on a working piece of equipment over its normal useful life, I'm fine with that. I mean, it's effectively rent, when you're doing that. But do not be on lines of credit. Make sure that you be at line of credit at zero and have 2 months of operating expenses in cash. So that's all. It's everything other than COGS of what your normal monthly expenses are. Because what we found is in the '08, when our clients who followed that cash and no debt philosophy, in 2009, 10, and 11, they had 3 very, very profitable years.
Okay.
And so when the marketplace gets disruptive and you have cash and no debt, business doesn't go to zero. I mean, and so let me give you a framework. So we said 2008 we went into a recession. Well, we were a $14 trillion economy, pre-recession. We dropped to 13.5 trillion. We didn't go to zero.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, the things that were overheated, there was a delay. But see, that cash gives you a buffer to kind of hang in the game, and do that. And it still kind of goes to the personal side. Beware of putting pressure on your business to give you those profit distribution dividends that you actually live off of and not living off of your salary. I mean, that part of it's huge. The more pressure that you make your business have to distribute profit to you to fund your lifestyle, you're putting your business at risk to go through difficult periods and limit its staying power. And so, I'm a fan of, on the personal side, I mean, have a paid for residence. I mean, when you don't owe anybody anything, you can kind of hang in there a long time.
Yep.
So it's not it sounds great to go buy stuff and let's do it. Oh, I can leverage. Yeah, I can make that mortgage payment.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got clients with multi-million-dollar houses that we've used their profitability to pay off those houses and have no debt.
Yeah.
And, when things get squirrely like this, that's when they say, I'm glad you told me to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
So that helps. So once you get those those are capital decisions. And so once you get the capital right, then the focus is be profitable with what you've got. And so to be profitable with what you got, it also, one more capital thing I do want to accentuate that we already talked about is make sure that you don't have your cash invested in projects, use your customers or your vendors' money, because the marketplace, the dominant thing in this industry says you can get it. There's no reason for you to be using your money to fund a project that might have delays. And if it gets delayed, fine. I mean, you're cash neutral on it, and go to the next project that can move along, in that process. So then it's, am I profitable with those projects? And this is, as you alluded to earlier, contractual. Make sure that if I quote something If that cost changes, I'm able to pass through that cost, not just at cost, but cost plus my normal margin.
Exactly.
I'm going backwards if I don't add the margin to it. And then in terms of labor, just make sure that you adjust. If you self-perform anything, almost treat your self-performance almost like a fixed price contract. Now I can probably control that piece a little bit better because I know what I pay my guys and all those kind of things. And so typically when in the contracting world, most people are getting caught by a material price changing on them significantly and also being delayed significantly. And then a contractor coming back to you and saying, hey, I can't do it for that price. My costs have gone up and here's my new price. And you just got to have contract flexibility. And yeah, you got some customers that are going to say, oh, I can't do that. It says, well, go find you a contractor that will let you do that. But you're not going to find, if you find one of those guys, they probably won't finish the job.
Yeah. Or won't be able to come back and fix things that break. They just disappear after they run out of money because they can't run a model that way. It just will not work.
Exactly. And I think as you explain it to people in a fair and balanced way of going, listen, I have to make a margin off everything I do or else I won't exist. I can't fix prices in a world where prices are changing daily.
Yes.
I can give you a fixed quote for 30 days. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the thing is this is what you end up doing. And this is for people who haven't been collecting enough up front. This is an easy way for you to get into the process of doing it. Say, listen, I need you to pay me this up front. I know it's a big number, but I got to go buy the materials and order them at today's price because I don't know what tomorrow's price is going to be. Yep. And now, and the one thing to keep in mind, if it's going to take 9 months to do it, it's ordering the materials at a price and a margin where it also covers my storage cost as well. So do I have extra storage fees, those kind of things as well. But that's really kind of the mindset of saying, hey, I'm going to take this money and lock in that price. And now make sure you do it. Now, if you don't, then that one's on you because they did give you the money and you didn't order it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's stupid. That's a stupid tax.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So if I'm hearing you right, the goal here is to make sure you have 2 months at a minimum, 2 months of operating expenses, put to the side. You're making money now. Things are good. There's tons of demand. So put some money away, squirrel it away, and also try to run your company as little to no debt as possible. Now, when you say no debt, I know a lot of guys starting out, they've got to go out, and you did mention this, but I want to go a little deeper into this. When they're buying equipment, I see guys that are out there going out and buying their truck, their second, third, fourth truck, and they're going to put a trailer behind it. They're going to go out and buy excavators and skid steers. They're going to buy all this, specialty equipment for, to make their entire teams more efficient. And so they don't have to work as hard because of the softer market. We got to make sure they have better tools to work with and more efficiency. So what should we be thinking about, or what should the listeners be thinking about when it comes to buying all that equipment, taking on all that debt, even though it is creating cash, right? We need that. What is there any kind of logic you have in that when it comes to businesses buying equipment? So
this is where, the world of accounting makes it hard for entrepreneurs to understand. And so I want you to use a real estate concept called cash on cash return. So if a real estate guy goes and buys $1 million building, he has to put $200,000 down and then finance $800,000. And so the way a real estate investor looks at that building is, if I want to make a 10% return on that building, cash on cash, I need to have $200,000 net cash flow to match off. $20,000 net cash flow, a year, offset against my $200,000 investment after income net of expenses, net of debt service, principal and interest. So they actually treat principal and interest as an expense relative to that cash on cash return. In reality, in the productive equipment debt financing model, do it the same way. That note payment is an expense. It's a nut that I got to get over. And I know the accountants, that listen to this will freak out, but it's like, listen, that's how every practical entrepreneur understands it. If I'm making $1,000 a month truck payment, it's an expense. Yeah, but that truck's going to get worn out, over the lifetime. Maybe it might, current market, it might be worth more, but it'll settle up in the end and it'll roll to the next truck. It's not the last truck I'm going to buy. And same thing with skid steers and any of those, pieces of equipment. The financing world is readily available in those. Now, the thing is, now don't go just because you're financing it and making a monthly payment instead of stroking a check for it. I don't need more equipment that I can't produce stuff with. But, that's where you got to look at what am I paying for that piece of equipment and what's the value that I'm creating, off of owning it versus, and looking at going down and renting it on occasion of when I need it and having to deal with delays or those kind of things. And so those are where you gotta kind of do the trade-offs, but I think the best way to look at it is think of that monthly note payment as an expense in your books, not as on the balance sheet and through depreciation and all those things. Because I got news for you. If you just expense every payment that you make, plus or minus the final payment that you either make when you get rid of it or income that you get back when you sell it for more than what you owed on it, you get to the exact same number across the length of time in accounting as booking the asset, depreciating it, and having principal and interest calculations and splitting every note payment. Which one sounds easier?
Yeah, exactly.
I think expensing the note payment, actually makes the most sense. But like I said, my peers just freak out when I say that. And it's like, it's because you guys don't understand how people make money.
Yeah.
And it's because the real estate guys have figured this out a long time ago, in terms of how they look at it. And it makes sense,
yeah,
at the end of the day.
That sounds great, Greg. So in wrapping up here, is there anything else you want to drop on our listeners based on this conversation that you think can help them, or have you said your piece?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to be a little more wary and keeping an eye on things of shortages of products and things that you might be sensitive to. And so where if you do have some excess cash, there's certain materials and things that can be in short supply. If you know that you have common things that are always in need and always, need there, if you're, keep an ear to the ground of all your supplier networks and those things, and, you might need to buy some stuff ahead, just for safety stock. I think most of my clients right now that carry inventory items are spending more money to make sure that they have it than to wait and risk, on the back end of going, I can't get it as when I need it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the different aspect of it.
So buying it at today's market, numbers and being able to forecast with, if you're buying certain things you use tons of and you can get rolls of, straw matting or whatever the hell it might be, bags of seeds, something that you can keep for a while and be able to buy it today and be able to sell it at a margin as opposed to not knowing what 3 days from now it's going to be. So trying to buy that if
you're going to have to do some investigation of some of those nondescript things that you use all the time that you really have to have. It may not appear to be a critical item and you're thinking, oh, they'll never run out of that. I got news for you. So we had shortages of foam that kept the furniture industry from having product in 21. Foam. I mean, who would think we'd run out of foam? Yeah. Right now, we've got shortages of cardboard just because of China lockdowns. And cardboard's kind of important, but
for sure,
nondescript, you're thinking, oh, well, no big problem. Yeah, it is a problem.
Yeah.
You got phosphate shortages. I mean, the fertilize problem is going to be massive.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at, some of the guys I follow in supply chain stuff. I mean, we got some serious food issues coming in the fall of this year and next year because of this phosphate issue. So once again, we can't stick our head in the sand, and we've enjoyed 25 years of just-in-time inventory of stuff when we needed it and or within a reasonable time of when we could get it. And you to think that is going to continue, it may in certain things, but it won't in all things, and it'll be the least stupid little thing that will keep a whole project from being completed and built.
Yep. So we got to prepare within our structure, our payment structure, to be prepared for the fact that things are going to take longer, especially with integrated projects. If you're doing outdoor living with patios and pools and roofs and decks and blah, 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 just keep adding to it. The risk factor is so much higher there because you're exposed to a lot more items. So, making sure that the cadence of your payment terms are always in your favor and that you're using the client's money. I think that's one of the huge nuggets here that was taken away, that should be taken away from this, is to make sure you're always using their money. It's their project. And if you don't have the guts or the understanding of how to have that conversation with your clients, reach out to us here at Yes Express. We help you with that conversation. We help you with many conversations, but it's the communication side, because when you spin it around and the clients can see what's in it for them to follow your lead and what you're asking for, and they can see why. The next thing you know, those conversations, they don't have to be, combative or confrontational. They can be very simple conversations, and we have them every day with our clients now. We don't have an issue with that. So it's really a matter of just understanding how to have it.
And I think, in that too, is also think about, I can't be so lazy to have a product that solves a problem. I need to have 2 or 3 sources of interchangeable products that can finish a project that I get stuck, and have alternative fits, finishes, sometimes we have it because it's convenient, but the customer goes, hey, I just want it done. And that's not that big of a difference if I substitute a product just because it's available, whereas something else might not be.
No, it makes perfect sense. Greg, as always, thank you very much for taking your precious time and being on here and helping our listeners and, navigating these crazy times. And as you guys know, our goal is to impact and empower 2 million people in the next 4.5 years. And we're well on our way to that, thanks to all of your incredible sharing of this information and with your friends and family. And, if you continue to do that, I'd be forever grateful. And because if we can help all of our brothers and sisters in this industry and other industries in the contracting world by listening to experts like Greg here, and they can get a leg up and get prepared and put that 2 months away and start to pay down their debt and knock it out. And when things shift, so we don't always have the crystal ball to see the future. This is the best guess right now based on the parameters of what Greg's seeing out there. But things can shift as well, and we don't even know that. But by being prepared, you don't have to worry about not being able to keep your team intact. I mean, how tough it is to find new people, right? And also to be able to be less stressed when you come home at night, knowing that your business is sitting there waiting, it's prepared, it's ready for just about anything that could come at it. And when you do that, you'll live a much more stress-free life and be able to enjoy working with your business and your team and not being always stressed out about trying to get the next deal so that you can pay old bills and all that kind of stuff. So, Greg, thank you again for being on the show, and we'll check in with you guys next week.
Appreciate it. Thank you.